There's this man I know, 60 years old, worked at the same company for 28 years, gets up at 5:15 every single morning, drives 45 minutes in traffic, sits in meetings he stopped caring about a decade ago, comes home tired, eats dinner, goes to bed, does it again. 28 years of that. And the thing is, he's not broke. He's got $2.1 million in his retirement accounts, paid off the house, kids are grown. Wife keeps asking him when he's going to finally hang it up, and every time she asks, he says the same thing. Not yet. Gotta keep putting money in. Gotta keep contributing. The advisor says stay the course. So I'm sitting with this guy one Saturday morning. We're at a diner. And he looks beat, right? Like the kind of tired that coffee doesn't fix. And I asked him straight up. I said, how much are you putting into the 401k right now? He said everything. $32,500 a year, maxing it out with the catch-up. I said, okay, and how much did your portfolio grow last year without you adding anything? He just looked at me, didn't know the number. So we pulled it up on his phone right there at the table, $147,000. His investments made $147,000 in 12 months, and he contributed 32. I said, brother, your money made 4.5 times what you put in. You know what you are? You're a guy pushing a car that's already driving itself. And he just sat there, didn't say anything for about 10 seconds. Then he goes, so why does my advisor keep telling me to max it out? And I said, that's exactly what we need to talk about. That conversation changed how he sees everything. And the math I showed him that morning is the same math I'm about to show you right now, because I think a whole lot of you watching this are in the exact same spot he was. Grinding, contributing, sacrificing. And nobody, not your advisor, not your company, not a single person in the entire system has ever sat you down and said, hey, you might already be past the finish line. You might be running a race that ended 3 years ago and nobody blew the whistle. Today, I'm going to break down the exact calculation that tells you whether you've crossed that line or how close you are. I'm going to show you the 3 numbers you need to check tonight. And I'm going to explain what actually happens to your money when you keep contributing past the point where it matters, because it's not just wasted effort. It creates real problems that cost you real bucks down the road. But stay all the way through, because the section at the end about what the financial industry doesn't want you figuring out, you see, is going to change how you hear the words stay the course for the rest of your life. Hit subscribe if you're trying to figure out when enough is enough. I don't do generic advice on this channel. I do the math nobody else shows you. All right, let's get into it. So here's what most guys don't understand about how retirement money actually works over time. And I didn't understand it either for a long time, so no judgment here. In the early years, your 30s, your 40s, your contributions are the engine. You've got $150,000 in the 401k, and the market gives you 7%. That's about $10,500 in growth. Meanwhile, you're putting in $20,000 plus a company match. Your contributions are doing double what the market is doing. You are the muscle. The portfolio is just along for the ride. But something shifts as that balance grows. And it happens so gradual that nobody notices the exact day it flips. At some point, your portfolio starts generating more growth in a single year than you could possibly contribute, even if you maxed out every single account the IRS lets you have. Let me put the 2026 numbers on this so you can see exactly where it hits, right? The most you can contribute to a 401k this year is $24,500. If you're 50 or older, you get an $8,000 catch-up. That's $32,500 total. Now, if you're between 60 and 63, there's a brand new thing called the Super Catch-up under the Secure 2.0 Act. Lets you put in $11,250 instead of $8,000, which pushes your max to $35,750. Add an IRA on top at $7,500, plus $1,100 more in catch-up if you're over 50, so $8,600. Even if you max absolutely everything available to you, you're looking at roughly 41 to 44 grand a year in personal contributions. Now watch what the portfolio does on its own, At one point, 2 million, 7% growth generates $84,000 in a year. Your max contributions are 40-some grand. The market just doubled your effort without breaking a sweat. At 1.5 million, 105 grand in growth. At 2 million, 140,000. At that point, your contributions aren't even a rounding error. The portfolio is a machine running on its own fuel. You're just standing next to it feeding it scraps. That's the crossover, the point where your money permanently out-earns anything you can contribute. For most guys who've been steady since their 30s or early 40s, this happens somewhere between 53 and 58. And once you've crossed it, genuinely crossed it, not just had one lucky year, you need to ask yourself a very honest question. Am I still contributing because the math says I need to, or because nobody ever told me I could stop? But if you thought the crossover was the whole answer, it's not. There's a second test, and this one actually tells you whether you can walk away. See, the crossover tells you your money works harder than you do. But working harder doesn't mean it's working hard enough to cover your life, right? What tells you that is a different calculation. Not a portfolio balance. Not a target number your advisor gave you over lunch. It's the ratio between what your life actually costs and what your money can sustainably produce. Here's how it works. Take your annual expenses. Everything. The whole 9 yards. Mortgage, property taxes, healthcare, groceries, insurance, utilities, travel, cars, eating out, gifts, all of it. For most couples in their 50s and 60s, that number lands between 75 and 120 grand, depending on where you live. Now, take your current portfolio and multiply by a sustainable withdrawal rate. I use 3.2 to 3.5%, not 4. That rule was built in 1994 on bond yields that don't exist anymore. 3.2 to 3.5 is realistic for today's world. Then add Social Security. Full retirement age is 67 for anyone born 1960 or later. That just locked in. If you delay claiming to 70, you get an 8% bump per year above your full retirement benefit. In 2026, the maximum benefit at full retirement age is $4,152 a month, about $49,800 a year. At 70, that climbs to $5,181 per month, over 62 grand. Most guys won't hit the max though. Average benefit right now is about $2,071 a month, roughly $24,800 a year. Go to ssa.gov and pull up your actual estimate. It's right there in your My Social Security account. Portfolio income plus Social Security. If that total covers your expenses with 15 to 20% on top as cushion, you're done. The race is over. Every contribution from this point forward is pocket change compared to what your portfolio already generates. And every year you keep grinding to make those contributions is a year you traded for a number that was already big enough. Let me run it with real numbers, you see. You're 58, 1.9 million across your accounts. You and your wife spend 94 grand a year. Planning to claim Social Security at 67, combined household benefit about 52,000 per year. You want to stop at 62. That's a 5-year bridge where you're living off the portfolio before Social Security kicks in. At 3.3%, your portfolio kicks off $62,700 a year. During those 5 bridge years, you're short about $31,300 annually, roughly 156 grand total. Your 1.9 million handles that easy, less than 9% of the portfolio. At 67, Social Security adds 52,000. Combined income, 114,700. Expenses, 94 grand. Over 20 grand in annual cushion, more than 20% above spending. Portfolio, still growing because you're not pulling everything it produces. That guy is done. And I told my friend at the diner, I said, your numbers are even better than this example. You've got 2.1 million. You're past it. You were past it 3 years ago. He looked at me and said, then why do I still feel like it's not enough? And I said, because the system is designed to make you feel that way. That feeling isn't math, you know? That feeling is a product. And somebody's selling it to you. $1,000. Let me explain what I mean by that, right? Because this is the part that connects everything. Every dollar you keep pushing into a traditional 401k, past the point where you have enough, is a dollar the government is going to force you to take back out. Starting at age 73, or 75 if you were born 1960 or later, the IRS mandates minimum distributions from every traditional retirement account you own. RMDs. You don't get a choice. It's mandatory. And every dollar comes out taxed as ordinary income. So here's what happens when you overcontribute. Say you pushed 300 grand past the finish line. Instead of 1.9 million, you've got 2.2 in traditional accounts. At 73, your RMD is about 83,000. At 1.9, it would have been 71,700. That extra 12 grand in forced income pushes you into a higher tax bracket. It can trigger IRNAA surcharges on Medicare, where the government says your income is too high on paper, so they charge you extra for premiums. And it shrinks how much of your Social Security stays tax-free. You saved money to be more secure, and it created a tax problem that eats your security from the inside. You know, the IRS doesn't care that you are being responsible. They see income, they tax income. And every extra dollar you contributed beyond what you needed is income they're going to take a bite out of for the rest of your life. My buddy at the diner, when I showed him this part, he got real quiet again. Then he said, so the 6 years I spent maxing out, I basically built a tax bomb? And I said, yeah, that's exactly what you built. Not on purpose. Not because you did anything wrong, because the system rewards you for contributing and never tells you when to stop. Drop a comment if you're starting to realize you might be building the same bomb right now. Because I think most guys watching this have never once heard anyone say the words, you might be contributing too much. It goes against everything you've been taught since your first day at work. Now here's why nobody told you. See? And I need you to really hear this part. Your financial advisor collects a fee based on how much you have invested with them. 1% on 1.9 million is 19 grand a year going into their pocket. You keep contributing and push that to 2.3 million? They're collecting $23,000, 4 grand more per year for doing the exact same job. Same meetings, same rebalancing, same phone calls every quarter. Just a bigger number on the statement. So when you sit across from your advisor and ask, can I stop contributing now? Think about who's answering. The person whose income goes up when you keep going. I told my friend that at the diner and he kind of laughed. You know, that quiet laugh where nothing's actually funny. He said, my advisor told me I should keep maxing until 65. I said, of course he did. That's 4 more years of 32 grand flowing into an account he takes 1% of. I'm not calling the guy a crook, but the machine is built to keep you feeding it. And the machine doesn't come with an off switch, because the people who built the machine get paid when it stays on. But honestly, the advisor incentive isn't even the main reason guys keep grinding past the point where the math works. The real one runs deeper than bucks. It's fear. The number is never big enough, because the fear never stops moving the goalpost. You hit 1 million and you think 1.5 gives you breathing room. Hit 1.5 and you think 2 is the real number. Hit 2 and now you're lying awake running worst-case scenarios. What if the market tanks 40% the year you retire? What if inflation runs hot for a decade? What if you end up in a memory care facility at 85 and it drains 300 grand out of pocket? And every one of those fears is real, right? Healthcare for a retired couple is estimated at over $315,000 cumulative. Long-term care can tack on another 200 to 500 grand. Sequence of returns. Risk. Retiring into a bad market is well documented. These aren't paranoid fantasies. These are real risks. But here's what's also true. The curve of diminishing returns is just as real. Going from 1.5 to 2 million drops your chance of going broke by maybe 3 or 4 percentage points. Going from 2 to 2.5, another 1 or 2. Each extra dollar buys less safety, but each extra year of grinding costs you exactly the same. 365 days you'll never see again. I know a guy. Kept saving until he had 3.4 million. His wife had been asking him to retire for 3 years. Come on, she kept saying. We got enough. Let's go live. He kept saying, not yet. Wanted 3.5. Hit it at 64. She got diagnosed with cancer 6 months later. Gone within the year. He retired at 65 into a quiet house with 3.5 million bucks and nobody to share it with. Told me he'd give back every penny of that last 400 grand for 2 more years with her. You know, but years don't work like dollars. You can't earn them back. You can't compound them. You can't put them in a 401k and watch them grow. Once they're gone, they're gone. So here are the 3 numbers you check tonight. Number 1, has your portfolio's annual growth outpaced your contributions for 3 consecutive years? Not 1 bull market year, 3 straight. If your investments are generating 80, 90, 100 grand in growth and you're putting in 35 or 40, the portfolio is self-sustaining. It doesn't need you feeding it anymore. Number 2, does your portfolio income at 3.2 to 3.5% withdrawal, plus your Social Security estimate, cover your annual expenses with 15 to 20% cushion? Run it with your real numbers. What you've got right now, you see, not some projection 10 years out. If it works today, or within 2 or 3 years, you're closer to done than anyone has ever told you. Number 3, and this is the hardest one, when you say 1 more year, is that math talking or fear talking? If the numbers work and you're still grinding because stopping feels dangerous, that's not financial planning, right? That's anxiety in a spreadsheet costume. And anxiety never gives you a number big enough. It always moves the line. Now, once you do stop contributing, here's what you do with that money instead. Because it doesn't just vanish, it gets redirected. Option 1, put it in a taxable brokerage account. No contribution limits, no age restrictions, no RMDs, ever. When you sell, you only pay tax on the gains and at long-term capital gains rates if you held more than a year, which is lower than ordinary income. This is the account that gives you control over your tax picture in retirement. The 401k takes that control away. The brokerage gives it back. Option 2, spend it. And I mean that. You know, if the retirement math already works, that 32 or 40 grand a year you've been contributing is money you can use right now. Take the trip to Alaska, fix up the house. Hand your son 20 grand toward his first home, while you're alive to watch him walk through the door. That money does more good in his hands today than sitting in your IRA for 15 more years generating taxable income you don't need. Option 3, go part-time. If you're working 50-hour weeks just to keep maxing accounts, ask yourself why. If the answer is habit, that's not strategy. Go to 3 days a week. Income drops, but you don't need it for contributions anymore. You just bought back 2 days every single week. Over a year, that's over 100 days of your life. Tuesdays on the golf course, Wednesdays at the lake, Thursdays picking up the grandkids from school. Here's the truth nobody in the industry will say. You know, there is a specific age where contributing to your retirement accounts stops being the smart move and starts being the expensive one, where your portfolio generates more in a single quarter than you can contribute in a full year, where every extra dollar in a traditional account builds a future tax bill instead of future security, and where the real cost of 1 more year isn't measured in bucks, it's measured in mornings, in trips, and moments you'll never get back because you were sitting in traffic on the way to a job you didn't need anymore. My friend finally put in his notice 3 weeks after that breakfast. Retired at 60, 2.1 million. His wife cried, not because of the money, because he was finally home, you see. He told me, you know what the crazy part is? The number was already there. It was there for years. I just needed somebody to tell me it was okay to stop. That's what this video is. Permission. Not from me, from the math. Run the 3 numbers tonight. And if the math says you're done, trust it, because the system will never tell you. It'll just keep saying stay the course while the clock keeps running on the years you can't get back. Drop a comment. Have you checked your numbers? Are you past the line, or are you still grinding because stopping feels like quitting even though the math says you already won? I want to hear it. Because most guys watching this right now are a lot closer to done than they think. Hit subscribe. Share this with your buddy who's still maxing his 401k and dragging himself to work every morning for a number that might already be big enough. He needs to hear this. See you in the next one.